The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler Station as Zara pulled her protective gear over her scaled skin. The mining equipment felt heavy in her hands, but she had grown used to the weight over the past 3 years. Every day started the same way for her now. Wake up alone in the small quarters at the edge of the settlement, eat a simple meal, and head to the deepest, most dangerous sections of the mine where no other Villani would dare to work. Zara belonged to the Villani race, a people with tough reptilian skin that could handle extreme temperatures and harsh environments. Their homeworld had been destroyed centuries ago, forcing them to spread across the galaxy in search of new places to call home. The Villani had strict rules about family and society. These rules decided who was important and who was not. For the Villani, having children was the most important thing in life. Females who could bear many offspring were treated like queens. They lived in beautiful homes, wore fine clothes, and had servants to take care of their every need. Males competed fiercely to become their mates, offering gifts and proving their worth through various challenges and displays of strength. Then there were females like Zara. 3 years ago, when she turned 25, Zara had gone through the fertility testing that all Villani females must complete. The medical scanners had examined every part of her body, checking her internal organs and measuring her hormone levels. The results had been clear and devastating. Zara could never have children. The medical term was complex, but the meaning was simple. She was barren. The announcement had changed everything. In one moment, Zara went from being a respected member of her clan to being an outcast. Her family had been ashamed. Her friends had stopped talking to her. The male who had been courting her, a successful trader named Vex, had immediately ended their relationship and found another mate within a week. The Barren bring bad luck, the clan elders had declared. They upset the natural order. They cannot stay among us. So Zara had been sent away, exiled to the outer mining stations where other outcasts and undesirables were forced to work. Kepler Station was one of the worst assignments possible. The work was dangerous, the conditions were harsh, and the pay was barely enough to survive. But for someone like Zara, it was the only option available. The mining tunnels stretched deep into the planet's core, where valuable crystals grew in dangerous formations. The tunnels were unstable, prone to cave-ins and toxic gas leaks. Most Villani workers stayed in the safer upper levels, using machines to do most of the dangerous work. But machines were expensive, and station managers preferred to send expendable workers into the worst areas. Zara had become very good at her job. She had a natural talent for reading the rock formations and predicting where the most valuable crystals could be found. She also had an excellent memory for the tunnel layouts, even the unmapped sections that changed frequently due to seismic activity. This knowledge kept her alive and made her valuable enough that the station managers tolerated her presence. But being valuable as a worker was very different from being valued as a person. The other Villani at the station treated her with cold politeness at best and open disgust at worst. She ate her meals alone, worked alone, and spent her free time alone in her small quarters. The loneliness was sometimes harder to bear than the physical dangers of the mines. On this particular morning, as Zara prepared her equipment, she noticed unusual activity around the station. Transport ships were arriving, and workers were setting up new communication arrays and defense systems. Station manager Orcs had called a meeting for all workers, which was unusual. Typically, the managers only cared about production quotas and profit margins. Zara made her way to the main assembly area, staying at the back of the crowd as usual. Manager Cork stood on a raised platform, his dark green scales glinting under the artificial lights. He was a typical Villani male, tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. Next to him stood a female named Vera, one of the station's few fertile women. Vera served as Cork's assistant and enjoyed special privileges because of her status. Workers of Kepler Station, Corks announced, his voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. Today marks an important change for our operation. The Galactic Council has assigned human military forces to establish a joint defense outpost here. These humans will help protect our mining operation from the raider attacks that have been increasing in this sector. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Villani had heard of humans, but few had ever encountered them directly. Humans were newcomers to galactic society, having achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Most species viewed them as primitive and unremarkable, though some stories spoke of their unusual fighting abilities and strange cultural practices. The humans will arrive within the next few days, Orcs continued. They will construct their own facilities, but they may require our assistance with local knowledge and resources. I expect all workers to cooperate with their requests. These are direct orders from the Galactic Council, and disobedience will result in immediate termination of employment. After the meeting ended, the workers dispersed to their various duties. Zara headed toward the tunnel entrance, but she couldn't stop thinking about the humans who were coming. She had heard various rumors about them over the years. Some said they were unusually aggressive and warlike. Others claimed they were incredibly diverse, with many different appearances and cultures. A few stories suggested that humans had strange ideas about social structure and family relationships. The next few days passed quickly as the station prepared for the human arrival. Construction crews worked around the clock to build new landing pads and storage facilities. Communication technicians installed translation systems that would allow humans and Villani to understand each other. The station's small medical facility was expanded to accommodate human physiology. Zara continued her regular work in the deep tunnels, but she found herself paying more attention to the surface activity than usual. She was curious about these newcomers and how they might change life at the station. Part of her hoped that the humans might be different from the Villani in their treatment of outcasts, but she tried not to get her hopes up. Every species she had encountered so far had their own version of social hierarchy, and those at the bottom were rarely treated well. On the morning of the fourth day, the humans finally arrived. Zara was emerging from the tunnels after her shift when she saw the first human transport ship landing on the newly constructed pad. The ship was smaller than most Villani vessels but appeared to be heavily armored and equipped with advanced weapon systems. As the landing ramp lowered, Zara got her first look at actual humans. They were smaller than Villani, with soft-looking skin instead of scales. Their coloring varied dramatically, which surprised her. Some had dark skin, others light, and many shades in between. Their hair came in different colors and textures. Most striking of all, they moved with a kind of coordinated purpose that was immediately noticeable. While Villani tended to operate in strict hierarchical formations, the humans seemed to work together more fluidly. The human leader was a male with medium brown skin and short dark hair. He wore a uniform with various insignia that probably indicated his rank and position. As he stepped onto the landing pad, Manager Orcs approached with Vera and several other station officials. "Welcome to Kepler Station," Orcs said, speaking in the common galactic language that most species used for trade and diplomacy. "I am Manager Orcs, and this is my assistant Vera. We are prepared to provide whatever support your mission requires." The human leader smiled, an expression that seemed genuine rather than the formal politeness Zara was used to seeing in official meetings. "Thank you for the welcome. I'm Sergeant Ben Torres, commanding officer for this outpost. We appreciate your cooperation in this joint operation." Zara noticed immediately that Ben Torres spoke differently than most military commanders she had encountered. His tone was respectful but not subservient. He treated Manager Orcs as an equal rather than either superior or subordinate. This was unusual behavior that caught her attention. Over the following days, Zara watched the humans establish their outpost with impressive efficiency. They worked together in ways that seemed to ignore traditional hierarchy. She saw high-ranking officers working alongside lower-ranked soldiers without any apparent concern for status differences. Even more surprisingly, she noticed that some of the human soldiers were female, and they appeared to hold positions of real authority. The humans' approach to work was also different. They asked questions constantly, seeking to understand not just what needed to be done but why it needed to be done and whether there might be better ways to accomplish their goals. They showed genuine interest in learning about local conditions, the geology of the mining operation, and the various challenges faced by station workers. Zara found herself hoping she might have a chance to interact with these unusual newcomers, but she knew better than to expect such an opportunity. As an outcast, she was kept away from important station business. The fertile Villani females like Vera would be the ones chosen to interact with human leadership. Zara would continue her work in the deep tunnels, invisible and ignored as usual. But fate had different plans. On her 10th day since the humans' arrival, Zara was working in Section C7, one of the deepest and most isolated parts of the mine. She had discovered a promising crystal formation the day before and was carefully extracting samples when her communications device crackled to life. "All workers in deep sections report to surface control immediately," came the urgent message. "Seismic activity detected. Possible cave-in danger in sections C5 through C9. Evacuation protocol in effect." Zara quickly gathered her tools and samples, securing them in her equipment pack. She knew the tunnels better than almost anyone, and she could feel the subtle vibrations in the rock that indicated instability. The evacuation order was serious, and she needed to move fast. As she made her way toward the main elevator shaft, she heard voices echoing from one of the side tunnels. This was strange, because most workers would have already evacuated from this level. She paused to listen and realized that the voices were speaking in what sounded like human languages rather than Villani or common galactic speech. Following the sound, Zara discovered two human soldiers who appeared to be lost in the maze of mining tunnels. They were studying a handheld device that was probably supposed to show them the way out, but the device seemed to be malfunctioning. Both humans looked concerned, and one was speaking rapidly into a communication unit. "Torres to base, we're having navigation problems in the lower levels. The mapping system isn't matching the actual tunnel layout. We need guidance to reach the surface before this seismic event gets worse." Zara recognized the voice. It was Sergeant Ben Torres, the human leader she had observed during the arrival ceremony. The other human was a female soldier with short blonde hair and equipment that marked her as some kind of technical specialist. For a moment, Zara hesitated. She wasn't supposed to interact with important station visitors without permission from management. But these humans were in real danger, and she was probably the only person in the tunnels who could guide them to safety quickly enough. Making a decision that would change her life, Zara stepped forward into the light where the humans could see her. "Excuse me," she said in careful common galactic speech. "I can help you reach the surface safely. I know these tunnels very well." Both humans turned toward her with expressions of relief and gratitude. Sergeant Torres smiled at her with the same genuine warmth she had noticed during his first meeting with station management. "Thank you," he said. "We would really appreciate your help. I'm Ben Torres, and this is Specialist Kim Park. What's your name?" The simple question caught Zara off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked for her name rather than simply ordering her around or ignoring her completely? She realized she was staring and quickly composed herself. "I am Zara," she replied. "I work in these deep sections. Follow me closely and step exactly where I step. Some of these passages are unstable even without seismic activity." As they began moving through the tunnels, Zara noticed that the humans paid careful attention to her instructions and showed none of the casual disrespect she was used to receiving from other species. Ben Torres asked intelligent questions about the tunnel system and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. Specialist Park commented on Zara's obvious expertise and knowledge of the mining operation. "How long have you been working in these deep sections?" Ben asked as they navigated a particularly complex junction of tunnels. 3 years, Zara replied. "Since I was assigned to this station." "That's a long time to spend in dangerous areas like this," Kim observed. "You must be very skilled to survive down here." Zara didn't know how to respond to what sounded like a compliment. She was so used to being treated as expendable that genuine recognition of her abilities felt foreign and confusing. They reached the main elevator shaft just as another tremor shook the tunnels around them. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling, and the emergency lights flickered ominously. Zara quickly activated the elevator and ushered the humans inside. "We made it just in time," Ben said as the elevator began its ascent toward the surface. "Thank you, Zara. You probably saved our lives down there." Again, Zara found herself struggling to respond appropriately to genuine gratitude from people who outranked her so dramatically. In Villani society, she would never receive thanks from authority figures. She would simply be expected to serve without acknowledgement or appreciation. When they reached the surface, Manager Orcs and several other station officials were waiting anxiously. The seismic event had triggered automatic evacuation protocols, and everyone was accounted for except for the 2 missing humans and the expendable worker who had been in the deep sections. "Sergeant Torres," Orcs said with obvious relief. "We were concerned when you failed to respond to evacuation calls. How did you manage to navigate the tunnel system?" Ben gestured toward Zara, who had instinctively moved to the background as the important people gathered to talk. "Zara guided us to safety. Without her knowledge of the tunnels, we would probably still be lost down there, or worse." Manager Orcs glanced at Zara with surprise and mild disapproval. It was improper for an outcast to interact with important visitors without permission. But he couldn't criticize Zara's actions when they had prevented an incident that could have created serious diplomatic problems. "Yes, well," Orcs said stiffly. "Zara knows the deep tunnels better than most. It was fortunate that she was available to assist you." Zara expected the conversation to end there, with her being dismissed back to her quarters while the important people continued their discussions. Instead, Ben Torres turned directly to her and continued speaking as if she were a valued participant in the conversation. "Zara, would you be available to meet with us tomorrow? We're trying to develop better understanding of the local geology and tunnel systems for our security planning. Your expertise could be really valuable for our mission." The request created an awkward silence among the Villani officials. It was highly unusual for outsiders to request specific interaction with outcast workers. Manager Orcs looked uncomfortable, and Vera's expression showed clear displeasure at the attention being paid to someone so far below her social status. "Sergeant Torres," Orcs said carefully, "perhaps one of our more experienced supervisors could provide the information you need. Vera has access to all of our geological surveys and mining reports." "I'm sure Vera's knowledge is valuable," Ben replied politely, "but Zara has practical experience in the areas we need to understand. Sometimes hands-on expertise is more useful than official reports." Zara realized that Ben Torres was gently but firmly insisting on working with her specifically, despite the obvious social complications this created for station management. She had never experienced anything like this before. No one had ever valued her knowledge and experience enough to overcome social prejudices in order to work with her. "Of course," Manager Orcs said, though his tone suggested he was anything but pleased with the arrangement. "Zara will be available to assist your mission as needed." As the group dispersed, Zara found herself walking back toward her quarters in a daze. Everything about her interaction with the humans had been different from what she expected. They had treated her with respect, acknowledged her skills, and seemed to value her contributions without regard for her social status among the Villani. For the first time in 3 years, Zara began to wonder if there might be people in the galaxy who measured worth differently than her own species did. Maybe there was more to life than the rigid social structures that had defined everything she had ever known. As she reached her small quarters and prepared for sleep, Zara realized she was looking forward to tomorrow's meeting with an emotion she had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. The next morning arrived sooner than Zara expected. She had barely slept, spending most of the night wondering what the humans would want to know and whether she would be able to provide useful information. No one had ever asked for her expertise before, at least not in any official capacity. The feeling was both exciting and terrifying. Zara arrived at the designated meeting location 15 minutes early, as was her habit. The humans had set up a temporary command center in one of the station's larger conference rooms. Through the windows, she could see Ben Torres and several other human soldiers studying holographic displays that showed three-dimensional maps of the mining tunnels and surrounding area. When Ben noticed her waiting outside, he immediately came to the door and invited her in. The warm welcome still felt strange to Zara, but she was beginning to appreciate this human custom of treating everyone with basic courtesy. "Good morning, Zara," Ben said with a smile. "Thank you for coming. I'd like you to meet the rest of our team." Ben introduced her to 5 other humans, each with different specialties and responsibilities. There was Kim Park, the technical specialist she had met the day before. Dr. Lisa Chen was the team's medical officer and xenobiologist. Lieutenant Mike Rodriguez handled communications and intelligence gathering. Corporal Amy Johnson was their demolitions expert. Finally, Captain Sarah Mitchell served as Ben's second-in-command and strategic planning officer. What struck Zara immediately was how the humans included her in their introductions as if she were an equal team member rather than a low-status worker who happened to be temporarily useful. Each person shook her hand, a human gesture she had learned about but never experienced. The physical contact felt awkward at first, but she sensed the genuine respect behind the gesture. "Zara," Captain Mitchell began, "we've been studying the official geological surveys of this area, but we're finding significant discrepancies between the maps and what we observed during our reconnaissance yesterday. Ben mentioned that you have extensive practical knowledge of the tunnel systems." Zara looked at the holographic display showing the mine layout. Even from her position at the edge of the group, she could see several obvious errors in the mapping data. "The official surveys are very old," she explained. "They were done before the major expansion project 5 years ago. Also, seismic activity changes the tunnel structure regularly. The maps cannot keep up with all the changes." Ben gestured for her to come closer to the display. "Could you show us what's different?" For the next 2 hours, Zara worked with the human team to correct their maps. She pointed out tunnels that no longer existed, new passages that had been carved or formed naturally, and dangerous areas that were unstable or contained toxic gas pockets. The humans listened carefully to everything she said, asked thoughtful questions, and made detailed notes of her corrections. Dr. Chen was particularly interested in Zara's knowledge of the planet's geology. "You mentioned toxic gas pockets. What types of gases, and how do you detect them?" "Several different kinds," Zara replied. "Some smell bad, others have no smell but make you feel sick. I learned to read the rock colors and crystal formations that usually appear near gas sources. Also, small animals that live in the tunnels behave differently in areas with dangerous air." "That's remarkable observational knowledge," Dr. Chen said with genuine admiration. "You've essentially developed your own environmental monitoring system based on natural indicators." Zara felt a warm feeling in her chest that she didn't recognize at first. It took her a moment to realize that she was experiencing pride in her abilities, something she hadn't felt in years. The humans were treating her knowledge as valuable and impressive rather than simply taking it for granted. Lieutenant Rodriguez asked about communication challenges in the deep tunnels. "Our standard radio equipment doesn't work well down there." "How do workers normally stay in contact with the surface?" "Most workers stay in the upper levels where the communication systems work," Zara explained. "In the deep sections, we use emergency beacons that can send simple signals through the rock. But mainly, workers in deep areas are expected to be self-sufficient and follow safety protocols without constant supervision." "What happens if someone gets injured or lost in the deep sections?" Corporal Johnson asked. "Usually, they die," Zara answered matter-of-factly. "The deep tunnels are considered very dangerous assignments. Only expendable workers are sent there." The humans exchanged uncomfortable glances at this information. Zara realized that they found the casual acceptance of worker deaths disturbing, which was another indication of how differently humans viewed individual worth compared to most other species. Captain Mitchell cleared her throat. "Zara, would you be willing to serve as our local geology and tunnel systems consultant? We would compensate you for your time, and your insights could be crucial for our mission success." Zara stared at her in surprise. "You want to hire me as a consultant?" "Absolutely," Ben said firmly. "Your knowledge is exactly what we need, and you're clearly the most qualified person available." Before Zara could respond, the conference room door opened and Manager Orcs entered with Vera and 2 other station officials. Orcs looked annoyed as he took in the scene of Zara working closely with the human team. "Sergeant Torres," Orcs said with forced politeness, "I hope this worker has been able to provide some useful information. However, I should point out that we have much more qualified personnel available for consultation purposes. Vera here has advanced degrees in geology and mining engineering." Vera stepped forward with a confident smile. "I would be happy to assist with your mapping project, Sergeant Torres. I have access to the most current survey data and technical specifications." Ben glanced at the holographic display, which now showed Zara's corrections highlighting dozens of dangerous inaccuracies in the official data. "I'm sure Vera's credentials are impressive," he said diplomatically, "but Zara's practical experience has already proven invaluable. She's identified critical safety issues that weren't in your official surveys." Corks's expression darkened slightly. "Sergeant Torres, I must respectfully suggest that you may not fully understand our personnel classifications. Zara is assigned to deep tunnel work because she is not qualified for more important responsibilities. Vera represents the quality of expertise that should be associated with this station in official capacities." The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Ben's expression became noticeably cooler. When he spoke, his voice remained polite but carried an edge of steel that made everyone pay attention. "Manager Orcs, I appreciate your concern for protocol. However, in human military operations, we measure qualifications by competence and results rather than social classifications. Zara has demonstrated superior knowledge of the local conditions that are critical to our mission. Those are the qualifications that matter to us." Captain Mitchell stepped up beside Ben in a clear show of support. "We've already committed to working with Zara as our primary local consultant. We value practical expertise over theoretical credentials." The confrontation was unlike anything Zara had ever witnessed. She was accustomed to authority figures like Orcs having absolute power over worker assignments and social interactions. The idea that someone might challenge his decisions, especially in defense of an outcast like herself, was almost impossible to believe. Vera looked shocked and angry at being passed over in favor of someone so far beneath her social status. "This is highly irregular," she protested. "The proper protocols exist for good reasons." Dr. Chen joined the conversation with clinical precision. "From a scientific perspective, direct observational experience often provides insights that formal surveys cannot capture. Zara's knowledge represents years of hands-on research that would be impossible to replicate quickly." Orcs realized that he was facing unified opposition from the entire human team. Forcing the issue would create diplomatic problems that could affect his own position with station management. Reluctantly, he backed down. "Very well," he said stiffly. "Zara will be available for consultation as requested. However, I expect all interactions to be conducted professionally and in accordance with station regulations." After the Villani officials left, the atmosphere in the room relaxed considerably. Zara felt shaken by what had just occurred. She had never seen anyone stand up to Manager Orcs before, especially not in defense of an outcast worker. "I'm sorry about that," Ben said to Zara. "Politics shouldn't interfere with getting the job done properly." "You defended me," Zara said quietly, still trying to process what had happened. "No one has ever defended me before." Ben looked surprised by this statement. "Of course we defended you. You're part of our team now, and you're the best qualified person for what we need. That's all that matters to us." The simple declaration hit Zara with unexpected emotional force. For the first time in 3 years, someone had judged her worth based on her abilities and contributions rather than her biological status. The feeling was overwhelming and wonderful. Over the following days, Zara worked closely with the human team to develop comprehensive security plans for the mining station. Her knowledge proved invaluable in ways that even she hadn't anticipated. She helped identify potential weak points in the station's defenses, mapped emergency evacuation routes through the tunnel systems, and provided crucial insights about local weather patterns and geological stability. The humans treated her as a valued team member throughout the process. They asked for her opinions on strategic decisions, included her in planning meetings, and made sure she had access to all relevant information. For Zara, the experience was transformative. She began to remember what it felt like to have purpose and to be respected for her contributions. Not everyone at the station was pleased with these developments. Many of the Villani workers, particularly those in positions of authority, resented seeing an outcast elevated to such importance. Vera made several attempts to undermine Zara's credibility, questioning her knowledge and suggesting that the humans were being deceived by incomplete information. Ben consistently shut down these attempts with firm but polite responses. He made it clear that the human team had full confidence in Zara's expertise and would not tolerate interference with their operational decisions. The situation came to a head during the third week of collaboration. Long-range sensors detected a large raider fleet approaching the system, and all stations in the area were placed on high alert. The raiders were known for their brutal tactics and advanced weaponry, and Kepler Station's standard defenses were not designed to handle a major assault. An emergency meeting was called in the main command center, with representatives from all station departments and the complete human military team. Manager Orcs presided over the meeting, with Vera and other senior Villani officials arranged around the central conference table. Zara was not initially invited to attend, despite her recent work with the human team. Ben immediately raised the issue. "Where is Zara? We need her input for defensive planning." "This is a high-level security meeting," Orcs replied. "Attendance is limited to senior personnel only." "Zara is our primary consultant on local conditions," Captain Mitchell stated firmly. "Her knowledge is essential for our defensive strategy." Vera seized the opportunity to reassert her authority. "I can provide any geological or technical information that might be needed. There's no reason to include lower-level workers in sensitive strategic discussions." Ben's expression became noticeably harder. "With respect, Vera, your theoretical knowledge cannot replace Zara's practical experience. We need someone who knows every tunnel, every weak point, and every potential advantage that this terrain offers." The argument was interrupted by an urgent communication from the orbital monitoring station. The raider fleet had increased speed and would arrive in less than 18 hours. There was no more time for political debates about meeting attendance. "Bring Zara here immediately," Ben ordered Lieutenant Rodriguez. "We need to finalize our defensive plans now." When Zara arrived at the command center, she was amazed by the sophisticated holographic displays showing real-time tactical information. The raider fleet consisted of 12 ships, including several heavy assault cruisers that significantly outgunned the station's defensive systems. Ben quickly explained the situation to Zara. "We need to use every possible advantage to defend this station. The raiders will probably try to land troops and take control of the mining operation intact. Our job is to make that as difficult and costly as possible." Zara studied the tactical displays, considering the raiders' likely approach vectors and landing strategies. Her mind raced through everything she knew about the station's layout, the surrounding terrain, and the underground tunnel systems. "They will probably land here, here, and here," she said, pointing to flat areas near the main facility entrances. "These are the obvious choices for heavy equipment and large numbers of troops." Captain Mitchell nodded. "That matches our tactical assessment. How do we make those landing zones less attractive?" Zara's eyes lit up as an idea formed. "The tunnel system extends under all of those areas. Some of the passages are large enough to move through quickly, and they connect to emergency exits that come up behind the proposed landing zones." Ben leaned forward with interest. "Are you suggesting we could use the tunnels to attack the raiders from behind after they land?" "More than that," Zara said excitedly. "Some of the tunnels pass directly under the landing zones. Corporal Johnson's explosives could collapse those areas just as the raider ships are touching down." Johnson whistled appreciatively. "That's brilliant. We could take out several ships before the troops even disembark." Dr. Chen was studying the geological data on her portable scanner. "Zara, would those explosions be contained, Or would they damage the main station facilities? If we place the charges correctly in specific tunnel sections, the collapses will be localized, Zara explained. I know exactly which support pillars to target for maximum effect with minimum risk to the station. Even Vera looked impressed despite her obvious reluctance to acknowledge Zara's contribution. That is actually a very sophisticated understanding of structural engineering, she admitted grudgingly. For the next 12 hours, Zara worked with the human team to implement the most complex defensive strategy Kepler Station had ever attempted. She guided teams of human soldiers through the tunnel networks, identifying optimal positions for explosive charges and coordinating the timing of multiple simultaneous attacks. The plan required precise knowledge of tunnel layouts, structural weak points, and timing calculations. Zara's years of experience in the deep mines proved crucial for every aspect of the operation. She could predict how the explosions would affect tunnel stability, how long it would take to move through different passages, and where the raiders would be most vulnerable. As the enemy fleet approached, Zara found herself in the main command center serving as the primary coordinator for underground operations. Manager Orcs and the other Villani officials watched in amazement as the outcast worker they had dismissed directed sophisticated military maneuvers with confidence and precision. When the first raider ships entered the planet's atmosphere, Zara gave the signal to begin the tunnel operation. Explosions echoed through the underground passages as carefully placed charges collapsed key structural points. On the surface, 3 of the primary landing zones suddenly gave way, sending surprised raider ships crashing into newly formed sinkholes. The remaining raiders, confused and disoriented by the unexpected underground attack, found themselves facing human soldiers emerging from concealed tunnel exits. The element of surprise was complete, and the defensive battle turned into a rout as the raiders fled back to their ships and retreated from the system. When the all-clear signal was given, the command center erupted in cheers and congratulations. Ben immediately sought out Zara and embraced her in full view of all the station personnel. "You saved this station," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "That was the most brilliant defensive strategy I've ever seen implemented." Captain Mitchell shook Zara's hand formally. "Outstanding work, consultant. Your tactical planning was flawless." Even Manager Orcs approached Zara with something resembling respect. "Your contributions to this defense were significant," he acknowledged. "The station owes you a debt of gratitude." For Zara, the recognition felt surreal. 3 weeks ago, she had been an invisible outcast working alone in the dangerous tunnels. Now she was being praised as a hero by the entire station community. But more importantly, she had discovered that her knowledge and skills had real value when properly recognized and utilized. As the celebration continued around her, Zara realized that working with the humans had changed her fundamental understanding of her own worth. She was no longer defined by what she couldn't do, but by what she could accomplish when given the opportunity. The future suddenly seemed full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. In the weeks following the successful defense of Kepler Station, life settled into a new routine that would have been impossible for Zara to imagine just a month earlier. She no longer worked alone in the dangerous deep tunnels. Instead, she served as the official liaison between the human military team and the mining operations, coordinating security measures and geological surveys. Her small quarters at the edge of the station had been relocated to better accommodations near the human command center. The new room was larger, cleaner, and equipped with communication systems that allowed her to stay in constant contact with both human and Villani operations. More importantly, it was located in an area where she interacted regularly with other people rather than living in isolation. Ben Torres had requested that Zara be given official consultant status with appropriate compensation and benefits. Manager Orcs had agreed, partly because of political pressure from the Galactic Council and partly because Zara's contributions had genuinely improved station operations. The change in her employment status meant better food, medical care, and access to station facilities that had previously been denied to her. But the most significant change in Zara's life was not material. It was the growing relationship between herself and Ben Torres. What had started as professional respect and collaboration had gradually developed into something much deeper. Ben sought out Zara's company even when there were no official duties to discuss. They often ate meals together, talking about everything from geological formations to human and Villani cultural differences. Ben was genuinely interested in learning about Zara's experiences and perspectives, while she was fascinated by his stories of human society and military service. Zara had never experienced anything like the friendship that developed between them. Ben treated her as an intellectual equal, valued her opinions, and seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with her. He had a way of making her feel important and valued that was completely different from anything in her previous experience. Ben was equally affected by their growing relationship. He had never met anyone with Zara's combination of intelligence, resilience, and quiet strength. Her knowledge and practical skills impressed him professionally, but her courage in overcoming years of mistreatment and isolation impressed him personally. He found himself thinking about her constantly and looking for excuses to spend more time together. The other members of the human team noticed the developing relationship and were supportive of it. Dr. Chen often mentioned how much happier both Ben and Zara seemed to be. Captain Mitchell noted that their partnership was improving the overall effectiveness of the joint human-Villani operation. The humans seemed to view the relationship as natural and positive. The Villani reaction was very different. Vera was the first to express open disapproval of the time Ben and Zara spent together. She complained to Manager Orcs that it was inappropriate for such a high-ranking visitor to associate so closely with an outcast worker. The situation reflected badly on the station's social order and sent the wrong message to other workers about proper hierarchical relationships. The humans don't understand our social structure, Vera argued during a meeting with station management. They're being deceived by someone who pretends to be more important than she actually is. This association could cause serious problems if it continues. Manager Orcs was in a difficult position. He couldn't directly criticize the humans' choice of associates without risking diplomatic problems, but he also faced pressure from Villani society to maintain traditional social boundaries. The situation was complicated by the fact that Zara's contributions had genuinely benefited the station, making it harder to argue that she was unworthy of attention. Other Villani workers watched the developing relationship with a mixture of confusion, disapproval, and curiosity. Some viewed it as proof that humans had strange customs and poor judgment. Others began to question whether traditional Villani social structures made sense if someone like Zara could prove so valuable when given the opportunity. The tension came to a head when Ben made a formal announcement that surprised everyone on the station. During a routine weekly briefing attended by both human and Villani personnel, Ben requested permission to make a personal statement. Manager Orcs agreed, expecting some kind of routine administrative announcement. Instead, Ben stood up and addressed the entire assembled group with obvious nervousness but firm determination. I want to make an official declaration according to human customs and traditions, Ben began. Zara has become very important to me, both professionally and personally. I am formally requesting recognition of our partnership according to human relationship protocols. The room fell silent as the implications of his statement sank in. Ben was essentially announcing his romantic intentions toward Zara in front of the entire station leadership. Vera gasped audibly. Manager Orcs' expression showed shock and disapproval. Even some of the human team members looked surprised by the public nature of Ben's declaration, though their expressions were supportive rather than critical. Ben continued speaking into the silence. Human society measures individual worth through character, loyalty, intelligence, and contribution to community welfare. By these standards, Zara is one of the most valuable people I have ever met. I would be honored to have her accept me as her life partner. Zara felt her heart racing as she processed what Ben had just said. He was publicly claiming her as his chosen mate, using his authority and status to validate her worth in front of everyone who had previously dismissed her as worthless. The gesture was both incredibly romantic and politically revolutionary. Manager Orcs found his voice first. Sergeant Torres, I must point out that there may be significant cultural barriers to such an arrangement. Villani social customs regarding partnership and mating are quite different from human practices. I understand that, Ben replied calmly. But we're not asking for Villani social approval. We're establishing a relationship according to human customs, which recognize individual choice and mutual consent as the only requirements for partnership. Captain Mitchell stepped forward to support her commanding officer. The human military recognizes Sergeant Torres's right to establish personal relationships according to his own judgment. His professional performance remains excellent, and his personal choices are his own to make. Dr. Chen added her professional opinion. From a medical and biological perspective, there are no barriers to human-Villani partnerships. Many interspecies relationships exist throughout the galaxy, and they often produce positive outcomes for both individuals and their communities. Vera could no longer contain her outrage. "This is completely inappropriate," she declared. "Zara is barren. She cannot fulfill the basic biological purpose of female partnership. How can any reasonable person choose such a defective mate when better options are available?" The insult hit Zara like a physical blow, bringing back years of shame and rejection. For a moment, she felt herself shrinking back into the invisible outcast she had been for so long. But before she could retreat, Ben's voice cut through the room with unmistakable anger. "That is enough," Ben said, his tone carrying the full authority of his military rank and personal conviction. "No one speaks about Zara that way in my presence. Her worth as a person has nothing to do with her biological functions." Ben turned to address the entire group, his voice becoming passionate and forceful. Human society has learned that measuring people's value by their reproductive capability is primitive and destructive. We judge individuals by their intelligence, their loyalty, their courage, and their contributions to their communities. By every one of these standards, Zara exceeds most people I have ever known. He looked directly at Vera as he continued. "Zara has saved this station twice in the past month. Once by guiding lost humans to safety during a seismic emergency, and once by designing the defensive strategy that defeated a superior enemy force. She has demonstrated knowledge, skill, and bravery that would be remarkable in anyone. The fact that she achieved all of this despite years of mistreatment and discrimination makes her accomplishments even more impressive." Ben's passionate defense of Zara's worth sent murmurs through the assembled Villani personnel. Many had never heard anyone challenge the fundamental assumptions of their social hierarchy so directly and convincingly. Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up from the human section. "In human military service, we have a saying, judge people by what they do, not what they are. Zara has done more to protect this station than most people could accomplish in a lifetime." Corporal Johnson nodded in agreement. "Any society that wastes talent like Zara's because of biological factors is hurting itself. Humans learned that lesson the hard way throughout our history." The support from the entire human team was overwhelming for Zara. She had never experienced anything like having multiple people defend her worth and dignity in public. The feeling was both humbling and empowering. Manager Orcs realized that he was facing a unified human position that he could not challenge without serious diplomatic consequences. The humans clearly viewed this as a matter of principle rather than just personal preference. Opposing them would suggest that Villani society was inferior to human customs, which could create problems with the Galactic Council. "Very well," Orcs said reluctantly. "If this arrangement follows human customs and both parties consent, the station administration will not interfere." Ben turned to Zara, who had been silent throughout the entire exchange. "Zara, would you be willing to accept me as your life partner according to human traditions?" Zara looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Some showed disapproval, others curiosity, and a few displayed what might have been respect or admiration. But most importantly, she saw the complete support and acceptance in the expressions of the human team members who had become her friends and colleagues. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "Yes, Ben Torres. I accept your partnership offer." The formal ceremony took place 3 days later in the Human Command Center, conducted according to traditional human military protocols. Captain Mitchell officiated, while the other team members served as witnesses. The ceremony was simple but meaningful, focusing on mutual commitment, respect, and partnership. Several Villani attended the ceremony, including some workers who had begun to question traditional social attitudes. Manager Corks attended as a diplomatic necessity, though his expression remained neutral throughout the proceedings. The most surprising attendee was Vera, who arrived just as the ceremony was beginning. When asked later why she had come, she admitted that she was curious about human customs and had been impressed by Ben's passionate defense of Zara's worth. After the ceremony, Ben and Zara moved into shared quarters that had been modified to accommodate both human and Vellani physiological needs. The living arrangement was comfortable and practical, but more importantly, it represented Zara's first real home since her exile from Vellani society. The impact of their partnership extended far beyond their personal relationship. Other Vellani workers began to observe how the humans evaluated people based on their abilities and contributions rather than their biological status or social classification. Some started to question why traditional hierarchies should determine individual worth and opportunities. Zara's new role as Ben's partner gave her additional authority and influence within the station community. She used this position to advocate for better treatment of other outcast workers and to promote more flexible approaches to job assignments based on skills rather than social status. Dr. Chen initiated a research project studying the intersection of human and Vellani social systems, with Zara serving as a primary consultant. The research revealed significant inefficiencies in Vellani society caused by discrimination and waste of human resources. The findings suggested that adopting more merit-based evaluation systems could benefit Vellani communities significantly. Ben requested that Zara be given official human military consultant status, which came with additional benefits and recognition. The appointment required approval from Human Military Command, but Ben's reports on Zara's contributions to station defense made the decision straightforward. 6 months after their partnership ceremony, Ben and Zara received a joint assignment to serve as cultural liaisons for other human Vellani cooperative projects throughout the sector. Their successful collaboration had impressed both Human Military Command and the Galactic Council, leading to requests for their expertise in establishing similar joint operations. The new assignment meant traveling to different stations and planets, working with diverse communities, and helping to establish better relationships between human and Vellani populations. For Zara, the opportunity represented a level of professional recognition and personal fulfillment that she had never imagined possible. As they prepared to leave Kepler Station for their new assignment, Zara reflected on how completely her life had changed. A year ago, she had been an isolated outcast working in dangerous conditions with no hope for a better future. Now she was part of a respected partnership, engaged in meaningful work, and looking forward to new challenges and opportunities. Ben had given her more than just love and companionship. He had given her the chance to discover her own worth and to use her abilities in ways that made a real difference in the world. More importantly, he had shown her that there were people in the galaxy who valued individuals for who they were rather than what they could not be. Their partnership had also created positive changes for others. Several other human-Vellani relationships had formed at various stations throughout the sector, inspired by their example. Vellani society was slowly beginning to reconsider some of its more restrictive traditions, particularly regarding the treatment of individuals who didn't fit traditional social categories. On their last night at Kepler Station, Ben and Zara stood together in the observation deck, looking out at the stars that would guide them to their new adventures. "Do you ever regret leaving your original life behind?" Ben asked gently. Zara considered the question seriously before responding. "I don't think I left my life behind. I think I finally found it. Everything before was just waiting for the chance to become who I was meant to be." Ben smiled and took her hand. "I'm glad we found each other." "So am I," Zara replied, squeezing his hand in return. "So am I." As their transport ship prepared for departure the next morning, Zara realized that she was no longer defined by what she lacked or what she couldn't do. Instead, she was defined by her relationships, her contributions, and her potential for future growth and achievement. The universe was vast and full of possibilities, and for the first time in her life, Zara felt worthy of exploring them all.